really said in the original language. I didn't know why I was coming here. I told the Father I wanted to come here for him to reveal himself to me, and if he wasn't going to reveal himself to me, let something happen where I don't go. And everything just went so smooth. And I will admit this past week was the greatest week of my life because I got to experience some things that not many other people had the opportunity to experience.
Well, I think there's a little bit that we can tell. There's some of this that at this point it's just we have to have the lid on it. Mm-hmm. And really, if you hadn't spent the last year learning Hebrew and really involved in this study.
Well, that's important that you say that because the last 2 years that I came, I had no interest in what I was seeing because I didn't know Hebrew. I didn't know and I don't know a whole lot of Hebrew now. But now that I know the little bit of Hebrew I do know, I had an opportunity to see the Hebrew text of Matthew. And in seeing it and understanding what it's really saying got me even more excited. And, you know, many people say the book of Matthew was written in Greek, but it's been translated from Hebrew to Greek. And many of the church fathers have admitted that they saw the Hebrew text of Matthew, and even Jerome admitted that he translated his scriptures from the Hebrew text of Matthew.
The last 10 days has been kind of a whirlwind. You didn't really have a chance to get over your jet lag because you were so busy doing it. 4 or 5 things that have happened this week that have made an impact on you. What would those be?
This time I came, I saw things that I didn't see before. I went into a church and I saw scriptures written, and you know how sometimes you hold scarves up and they kind of curve around each other if you got 2 of them. Saw scriptures written on those scarves, and I saw sitting in the church Poseidon holding these scriptures up. You know,
that's right, pagan gods, right in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, just full of paganism and pagan gods.
And knowing that Helena came and set a church right on the temple of Aphrodite.
That's right.
So I began to really get real discouraged, and I began to really understand what the Father meant when he talked about that his people have allowed the nations to come in and defile his temple and defile his city. You know, seeing Muslim mosques, seeing the traditions, even of the rabbis, just seeing all of this, just begin to make my heart weep because I begin to understand there's paganism in the city, and the city has been given over to the world and is copied after the world. That was the first thing that really I noticed. And then having the opportunity to meet with the Ethiopian Jews.
Yeah, now that was very special. Yeah. You met with Qais HaKasim, which is like the high priest, the leader of all of the Ethiopian Jews, you know, no matter where they are in the world.
And, you know, it was really interesting when we sat with his son, and Nehemiah Gordon went with us to translate. And they were telling us about what they believe. They pretty much believe in the Hebrew scriptures, and they won't move from that. And one of the things that really broke my heart is that they were trying to build a synagogue, and they're not being allowed to build a synagogue because they won't adopt rabbinic tradition. And so
they won't convert to rabbinic Judaism. Right. They maintain the same Judaism that they've had for about 2,000 years, which is this is what the scripture says, this is what we do.
Right. And it was sad to me because, of course, being able to experience some things, just talking to my grandmother and some who came before me about some of the things they experienced, it brought back kind of some reminiscing of that these people are being discriminated against because they want to stick with what they believe in, which is good, what they believe in.
You spent quite a bit of the day there with them, and then what else happened during the trip?
Well, seeing the seat of Moses really was a real highlight too. You know, understanding what the seat of Moses was, and understanding a lot of the traditions that were laid down. I often ask people this question now. I ask them, do they believe the Jews base their lives on the Torah of Moses and on the works of the Torah? And many Christians' response is, oh, yes. And my response to them is, oh, no, because many within Rabbinic Judaism believe that the Talmud and the Mishnah has more authority, and the rabbis have more authority than Moses did. So many of them have become shocked to know that. And so the thing is that not only is Rabbinic Judaism denying Moses, Christianity is also denying Moses and denying what God gave to Moses. So there's no difference between us.
If they believe Moses, they believe and follow me.
Right. So
you could say to both groups.
Exactly. So Christianity is no better, because we will be better when we say, I'm not going to add on and I'm not going to take away. I'm going to do exactly what the Father said.
I'm going to follow the Messiah, and he said, do what Moses said to do, not what men have added on.
Right.
We saw that not only was the seat of Moses there, but also on the lintels we saw some images that were quite revealing, weren't they?
Yeah, they were quite revealing. They said the images actually was related to Medusa, but we actually saw that really the images were sun god images that was related to Mithra, that was in the synagogues. So that was rather incredible to me, to know that they had put pagan images even in the synagogues back during that day.
And it's not just in that synagogue. Sun god worship is what people naturally default to if they do not go by the instructions, the Torah of God, and that is part of the doctrines and commandments, the traditions of men that turn away from the truth.
Yeah.
And this land is full of it, so that we can see the warnings and why Israel was ejected out of the land, why Judah was taken into captivity, and now what do we do about it in this generation? I
think what we do about it, we got to go back and keep the commandments. The scripture says that. I've traveled here in the last few years. I stopped preaching after a while, but as I traveled, I had the opportunity to speak to about 30,000 people during that time. And I asked these questions. Number one, how does the scripture define our love for God, the Father? Number two, how does the scripture define our love for one another? Number three, how do we get our prayers answered? Number four, how do we enter into life? And number five, what is the new covenant? I probably had 2 people out of 30,000 people, including ministers, answer one of the questions right. So these are questions that we should be answering. Number one, how does the scripture define our love for the Father? It tells us this: we know that we love God if we keep his commandments, for his commandments are not burdensome. Number two, and that's 1 John 5:3. 1 John 5:2 says, we know that we love the children of God if we keep his commandments. Number three, how do we enter into life? When the rich young ruler came to Messiah, he called him good master. He said, no one is good but God. But if you desire to enter into life, keep the commandments. And then the new covenant, they don't know what the new covenant. I make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, not the church. The house of Israel and the house of Judah. I will write my Torah on their hearts. There were other questions that I'd asked. Also, that these are simple questions that should be asked, that is the foundation of our faith, and we can't even answer these questions.
And I think really from both of our perspectives, what partially drove us into this is seeing the rampant excuses, the breaking of the commandments, the immorality, the sin that is just rampant in the Christian church, and there are like no rules. And so we begin to ask, what's the justice of God? What is right? How should we walk? How should we live? Because it's more than just a prosperity gospel, isn't it?
It is, and the scripture tells us this, that the Torah, the purpose of the Torah is to reveal sin. The transgression of the Torah is sin. So if we don't preach the Torah, then people are going to walk in sin. This is why you see people walking around with tattoos on them, walking around with stuff that in their lives, and they don't know it's wrong. That's because nobody's ever told them. Why? Because that don't apply to us no more, they say.
Well, it's been great having you here. We could really talk for another hour or so about what happened during this last week, as far as the people that you got to meet and the things that we got to see around this country, and perhaps we'll get a chance to do that sometime. But it's been a pleasure having you here, and keep teaching the Torah.
You got it.
May many be added to your fold.
Same to you.